Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the surprise album from Jeff Rosenstock called Post. So I'm actually a little bit surprised. I didn't quite get as much backlash as I was expecting for my more political picks of my year-end list for albums and songs. Maybe you're all just used to my point of view by now. Maybe the record's quality overran the content. Or maybe I just haven't pissed off the right set of people yet. But for those of you who were a little bit bothered by the politics coming up at all, be you on the left or on the right, well look, I'm not sure what to tell you at this point. I think that we were all hoping for this conversation to have quieted down a little bit, and yet with every single passing day it seems to only get louder. Thank you so much, social media. And given how certain tax policies are now directly targeting artists in an era of greater economic inequality than ever, you can't exactly expect them to shut up about it. Now granted, I'm not sure you could shut up a punk rock lifer such as Jeff Rosenstock even if you tried. When Worry became a critical darling back in 2016, just days before the election, even in the face of a possible Democratic victory, you can still hear the pronounced anxiety on that album. How even if the Democrats won, gentrification and police brutality and social media obsession and the increased numbness of a weary millennial population, that was not going away, especially in the face of crippling self-awareness of all the culpability and flaws of it. It was a record approaching burnout with a half-drunk determination to just keep on staggering forward, because it couldn't really get that bad in the end, and then the election happened. And well, to some extent that does lock Worry into a very specific context pre-election. It also threw a wide enough net and captured the cultural mood so effectively, especially in the emotionality of the album, that it did stick around in people's minds, so it doesn't fade into the immediate irrelevance like Common's Black America Again did. And really, given how closely attuned Jeff Rosenstock's writing felt to his audience, I knew it was only going to be a matter of time before he would contextualize the insanity of the past year and come back all the stronger. It would be political, it would be empathetic, it would give Jeff Rosenstock the space to push his blend of power pop, hardcore punk, and even traces of ska into more places than ever before. In short, this is the album that I think a lot of people really needed to start off with 2018, give them that boost of adrenaline. And thus, what did we get with Post? Well, honestly, I kind of wanted to like this a little bit more than I did. Of course, I'm not saying this is remotely bad. Jeff Rosenstock is too smart of a writer, both in his lyrics and composition, to truly let that happen. And there really are some brilliant moments on Post, but I don't really think it has the lasting impact of Worry. And overall, I get the impression that it's a more scattered, fragmented, even misshapen listen than that nervous panic of a last album. And while, like, say, Destroyers can, it makes some artistic sense in trying to deal with some of that trauma, for lack of better words, I'm not quite sure as a whole it holds up as well. It's a great record, but I'm not sure how much of a shelf life it'll have. Now, again, that's not to take away from Rosenstock himself. He's a howling, incredibly expressive presence as a singer that can uncannily capture anxiety, rage, frustration, and a bone-deep tiredness that provides the emotional weight to so many of these songs. And his backing band is just as tight and explosive as ever before, especially given that Rosenstock recruited Chris Farr and Lauren Stevenson, the Canadian punk band Pup, and even more for his backing vocals. Now, if you're drawing a comparison to Worry, I can see why some might consider Post a little bit less eclectic. There's no out-of-nowhere ska digression, for instance. There's no ska on this record at all. But his choice to infuse more songs like TV Stars and 9 out of 10 with pianos and more prominent buzzy synth lines to take almost the lead in some of these songs, it does add to a slightly more measured tone. Hell, even the songs that show more of their hardcore influence in their brevity and speed and intensity, they feel a little bit more refined and sharpened in terms of the melodic hook. I'd say this is the album with the most pronounced pop sheen for Jeff Rosenstock to date, but then you get the low end full of clashing, noisy cymbals and grinding bass grooves that add just the right texture to really balance out the mix, and it sounds phenomenal, especially with songs like USA that throw in what sound like tremolo riffs to fill out the melody in the background. And for as much as this album is more willing to slow things down or break into anthemic clapping sing-alongs, it needs that galloping groove on songs like Your Throat, where the jangling, ragged fuzz and all this useless energy, or that grimy anchoring foundation of so much of Let Them Win that will eventually break into the fragile acoustics and a synth-driven, borderline ambient outro that strangely feels like one of the best possible ways an album like this can end. Now look, Not all the compositional choices worked for me. The keening or ringing throughout parts of Melba definitely didn't fit in all that well with the song's pop-punk sheen. The mid-tempo rhythm on Banging My Head Against the Wall probably could have afforded to go a little bit faster, especially if the song felt a little underwritten, a little abbreviated. And I really do wish the solos on songs like Powerlessness had a little bit more room to breathe, especially when there are songs like USA and Let Them Win that really do take their time, but for me, that's kind of nitpicking. The much bigger story comes in a lot of the content. The record that Jeff Rosenstock wrote in a flurry on his own in the Catskill Mountains right after the election. And you know what? There's a part of me that feels that some of the haste of his writing shows through. It very much feels like a snapshot of the whirling cacophony of emotions that came in the first months of 2017, with a gift of empathy that shows Rosenstock trying to choke back anger at his otherwise normal people in his world. He just needs to know if they actually voted and did it, and if they understood the consequences. Hell, USA snaps to even their perspective as they wait to see all the grand promises of 2016 fulfilled, but now, in the aftermath, they're just tired and bored, just wanting everything to snap back to normal and accept society's defined and natural roles. And while Jeff Rosenstock is hyper-conscious of the ease of that temptation, especially for a guy like him, Melba is all about that desperate escape into rose-colored nostalgia on a different country. He can't do it. He just can't. It genuinely enrages him on your throat that he can talk for hours on the stuff that means nothing, but when it comes to speak out for something real, his anxiety will hold him back. He tries to hold things together in the aftermath of a protest as he's just sick of being alone on Powerlessness, but he's too wound up with nervous energy. And looking to celebrities on TV stars, he balances out his acidic hook with the knowledge that so many of them are so divorced from real consequences and have lost any sense of perspective, reality, or even themselves constantly stepping into other roles that they might not be the best standard bearers. And here's the important thing. While it is empathetic to people on the other side who are caught up in this, who are just trying to live their lives, he sure as hell isn't giving much time to those who refuse to listen or engage, or those who attempt to divide and dehumanize people on his side. Or to quote him on Let Them Win, those who never empathize with anyone but themselves. And yet, when it comes to some of the content here, it can't help but feel like it's missing the added subtextual layers that made Worry so damn effective and compelling on repeated listens. I mean, sure, you can make the argument that sometimes stripping out the complexity, it's needed when you want to make those anthems really punch, and they do here. Or when you have just exhausted songs that are just looking for a moment of connection, like Powerlessness or 9 out of 10. They do fit the emotional through line of the record, even if it doesn't come through in the text. Hell, that emotional through line is one of the big reasons why the extended ambient outro of Let Them Win works so damn well. A moment of resolve and quiet peace found out against the anxious chaos. And I get not overloading the details to add some longevity or universality outside of this one moment in time. Even though the album title didn't add anything after the hyphen because we all know what this record is post from, but I still get the idea. But I can't help but feel that if the record was going to take so many structural risks, it would push a little bit harder in the content too. A few of these songs just can't help but feel a bit undercooked, or only loosely tied into the ideas at the album's core. They work because of the emotional subtext. There's not a bad song here. I just wish that more of the actual text actually backed it up. But still, for the first album out of the gate on the New Year's Day of 2018, it's a damn solid start. With tight hooks, killer production and mixing, and enough emotional nuance to make this an easy sell to any punk or indie rock fan, especially if you're more left of the dial. It's a very light 8 out of 10 for me, easily on the cusp of greatness, the sort of fiercely relevant punk from a veteran who knows how to surprise and deliver, definitely deserving of your time. Check it out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I'd like you to look at my Patreon, which is right over there, where 3 times a week for the contributors, you guys get to vote on my schedule, and once a week for the higher tier contributors, you guys get to add albums, movies, or even a top 10 list to that schedule. Oh, by the way, if you want to see that schedule, it's now available on my Instagram, and the links to that is right over there. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, happy to get on board. And until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.